We're going to do the Facebook Live.
Hey, what's up, Facebook world? Mix 108 fans, Jeanne Ryan, Officer Tinsley in the house. We are going to be doing Ask a Cop here in a matter of, 10 seconds or so. You can actually watch as well as submit questions through Facebook. So, that being said, feel free to drop a question in the comments, and we'll be able to hopefully get to as many as we can. Today's best mix, Mix 108, Jeanne and Cooper here with you on this Tuesday morning. We are not only on the air, but we're also streaming on Facebook Live right now. You can go to the Facebook page, Mix 108's Facebook page, Mix 108 Duluth, and watch Ask a Cop live. For those of you watching, you can see Jeanne Ryan and Officer Tinsley as they've both waved at the camera a couple times already. So questions can be submitted through a number of different methods. We'll take some phone calls if you have them, as well as you can drop a question in the comments in our Facebook Live video, as well as by submitting questions on our website as well at mix108.com. So feel free to hit us up in any method. Now, a couple things we want to start off with this morning were, first and foremost, there was actually a post yesterday on the Duluth Police Department Facebook page about a scam that's targeting Wells Fargo customers. If you want to touch base a little bit on that, offer some information.
Yeah, I mean, so I got a message on our Facebook page about this potential scam, and these things are going to happen. So you're just going to want to make sure that you contact the financial institution if you do happen to receive one of those. And in this case, this person wasn't even a Wells Fargo customer, so that was the red flag that popped up with her. But just to make sure that you don't respond, I would just simply delete that text or email, and it'll prevent you any kind of problems in the long run.
Makes perfect sense. And that's like you said, especially if you're not a customer, very easy telltale sign of the fact that this is a scam. But even then, it's definitely worth being aware of what normal communication methods you have with your bank, whoever it is, or with whatever institutions or businesses you're dealing with, and make sure that it's legit before you go and click on a link or submit information to anybody for that matter.
And if you have any questions, call the bank directly.
Right.
Don't respond to that if it seems like you make a good point. If it seems odd,
right,
versus different stuff you get from your bank.
Absolutely. We
got some email submissions, and so we'll pose these to Officer Tinsley and see if we can get some answers for you. We had somebody email us saying, can police make a stop if they only find a car later? If the police can stop someone for a minor traffic offense, speeding, red light, etc., if they don't make the stop immediately after observing the violation, that is, what if they lose sight of the vehicle, then see it again like an hour later?
That actually happens quite a bit. We will get driving complaints. It is our duty to actually investigate them. So the best thing you can do is give out as much detailed information about that vehicle, to include license plates. And we had an incident, and this was probably back 6 months ago, where an officer attempted to stop a vehicle. The driver decided he wanted to flee from him, so eventually the officer did happen to lose this vehicle, but had the license plate, had the description of the vehicle, of course, and even I think I did approach a driver who identified himself by name, not by ID. And so this driver flees, and the officer happens to lose sight of him. And I think it was 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, the vehicle is spotted by another officer, and another vehicle kind of pursuit ensues, and this time he actually runs into a snowbank.
Wow.
So the driver gets out and he flees on foot and is eventually captured. And so he's actually charged with 2 counts of fleeing in a motor vehicle, along with other multiple driving violations and fleeing on foot. So yes, if the vehicle is, seen doing a certain violation or whatever, and the vehicle's seen later, yes, it can be stopped.
So if you are speeding and you go past a police officer, you may not be out of the woods.
Right, absolutely.
You could be calling ahead to someone else because maybe they're doing something. So don't sit there and go, ha ha, got away.
Well, and that also brings up a good point, too, because when we're behind a vehicle and say somewhere like Central Entrance, traffic's backed up, you have stoplights and stuff like that, we may wait 2-3 miles down the road for a safe location to stop a vehicle. That
Sure.
and that happens
Yeah.
on the highway a lot.
Oh, yeah.
If the freeway is jam packed with vehicles, we may follow you off to the off ramp. To a safe location, not only for your safety, but our safety as well.
Sure, no, that makes sense.
Well, because the thing is, too, is I live out east, and, you think for the tunnels, I think about that all the time. Like if you
Right.
get pulled over, doubtful an officer would pull you over there knowing it's so narrow and not safe. But, it's one of those things, too, if you see that you're being pulled over and you're trying to find a safe spot, I think that kind of freaks some people out where they'll just pull over wherever, and it's not necessarily a safe place.
And you also said pull over wherever. There is a law that requires a driver to actually pull over to the right side of the road, and not in the drive lane. I've actually stopped a vehicle, and this happened on I-35, and this happened probably 2-3 weeks ago, where I stopped a vehicle on the freeway, and the vehicle pulls over to the left in the drive lane, and that is very, very dangerous. Not only for you, but
Right.
also for us.
Right.
So make sure you're pulling over to the right when you're being stopped.
We did get some questions here. I want to acknowledge a few of those on our Facebook Live video from Mix 108's Facebook page. One of the questions that we got is actually something we talked a little bit about a couple weeks ago, but it's worth bringing up on a little bit of a level here. Joel actually asked the question, what can be done to cut down on car prowlers? They point out specifically in Hillside, but of course elsewhere as well. So if there's a couple quick things you want to touch base on again, perhaps to help Joel out a little bit.
Well, this is a joint effort between the public and the police department. The first thing that I try to keep putting on our Facebook page is, if you take away that opportunity, taking away, removing the items out of your vehicle, they're not going to steal them. It's pretty simple. If you leave your doors unlocked, and we can get in the debate whether or not you leave your doors unlocked or whatever the case may be, and I'm worried about my windows getting broken, well then that's your choice whether or not you want to leave it unlocked or lock it. But the bottom line here is just remove valuables and even bags in your vehicle. So if you have a plastic bag and you have garbage in it, if they can't see what's in there, they may think there's something of value in there. Change in the cup holder, remove that. Anything that somebody would go in there and break in to take. So that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to help us, and it's going to help the public, is to take that stuff out of your vehicles. The other thing is, if you happen to see people lifting up on door handles, people hanging around vehicles, walking up and down the avenues repeatedly, don't hesitate to call 911 and report that suspicious activity. Hopefully it's just, we get there, we talk to the person, it's just somebody hanging out in the area. But a lot of the vehicle prowlers that are caught are because the public watches their neighborhood and they call them in.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Time for one more quick question. Jeanne, you had a few other ones if you want to pick one of the better ones of the bunch there.
Can you tow a car if the driver has a suspended license and has knowledge but is not the registered owner? If so, can you place a 30-day hold on it?
Well, whether your license is suspended, revoked, whatever the case may be of your status, and it's not valid, regardless if you know or not, the vehicle can be towed. And you do not have to be the registered owner. Okay. And so that's a simple, quick response. It can be towed, yes.
Okay.
So that's something to think about if you're borrowing a car. Make sure everything's legit.
Right.
Well, and again, I know for myself that I just stopped a vehicle. Of course, this car would happen to be doing 50 miles an hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone, and the person ended up not having a valid license. The passenger, of course, did, and of course, the registered owner, who was a mom of the passenger, was contacted because I had to make sure she had insurance on the vehicle, and of course, the passenger, her daughter, was allowed to drive the vehicle home.
Sure.
Had there not been that valid passenger in the vehicle and the vehicle was his, it probably would have been towed.
That's one of those things that's, taking risks all the time. You see it all the time. Suspended license or no insurance or whatever, And I understand you got to get where you got to get to, but that's something to think about. There's going to be consequences for it.
Well, and like I told the person, I said, well, had you not been doing 20 miles an hour over the speed limit, I probably wouldn't even thought about stopping you.
Right.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Well, Officer Tinsley, we did get one more quick question I wanted to address. I know this is a very deep subject. There's a lot of stuff tied into this, but we don't have a lot of time. So if you can kind of I'll try to kind of summarize the question here. Dave is curious about why, with the drug problem that we're having around the area, in particular heroin, for example, and things like that, he's kind of curious why it is that a lot of the individuals that are initially being arrested are getting out so quickly. And I know that goes way beyond just what the officers themselves are doing that are dealing with this. But if you maybe give a little bit of an answer for Dave.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, and this is definitely not shifting blame or anything like that on anybody, but what you got to remember is that even though these individuals are charged with a crime, they still go through the court process, and I'm going to make it very simple. They get to go through the court process, and whatever the court decides is, what happens to them.
Right.
So the charge is still there. It's just that they go through the court process, and whatever the court determines, then that's, if it's somebody that has a long history of narcotic sales or possession of narcotics, and they have done it before, chances are they're probably not going to be let out anytime soon.
Right.
But if it's maybe the first offense or whatever the case may be, then at that point they may be released, with a court hearing, or they might be placed on supervised release or some form of probation.
No, I mean that's a big part of this, is to remember that you as not necessarily just you, but the officers are not judge, jury, and executioner, if you will. You're not doing the entire process on your own, and so it's important to know that the legal system is in place and that there are other folks involved in the decision making of what's happening to these individuals, and so there's those decisions being made for a various number of reasons. But obviously, if it's somebody who's repeatedly causing problems, as you pointed out, they're going to get what's coming to them.
Right.
So I'm sure it's got to be frustrating for you guys if you see the same people all the time. Oh yeah, I just arrested him 3 weeks ago for the same thing, and so that's what I think the general public needs to realize. It's got to be really hard for you, the officers, to continually be running into these same people. You're going through the process.
It does, and it's just part of the process, and as far as the drug arrests that have been made, the Lake Superior Drug and Violent Crimes Task Force, regardless of whether or not the individuals are arrested and later released, they're still they're going out there and they're doing an awesome job at taking care of this problem.
Right. Well, Officer Tinsley, thank you very much for joining us here again this morning. Some good questions. Tried something new, a little Facebook Live video. Got some good commentary from there as well. So something we might try doing again in the future.
Hey, I want to just mention one thing, and I was going to do it right off the bat, but we have, if you are interested in any way of a career in law enforcement, we actually are holding a career recruitment event up at the Public Safety Building on Thursday the 19th, and I believe the time was 6 to 8 o'clock. But if you want to check our Facebook page, and you also have to call in if you do want to attend.
Okay, perfect. Good information. Cool. And so, yeah, if it's something that you're interested in any fashion, definitely an opportunity to kind of get the information you need and pursue that from there. So, very cool. You could join the ranks of people like Officer Tinsley, who I'm pointing my camera at right now. Thank you very much for joining us here this morning. Some music on the way soon from Ariana Grande and Flo Rida. For those of you watching us on Facebook, we'll hang out for a couple more seconds here and then move on. All right, so we're still on Facebook Live video. This is something that we might bring up on the air next week, but we got one more question I wanted to answer for Stacy, just here on exclusive Facebook video question. Can you get a fine for leaving your kids in the car when you pay for gas? I know we've actually touched on subjects like this in the past, but if you want to maybe offer some thoughts on that.
No, you can't. I would, and I think we touched base on this maybe a week ago or so.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago. I think, something
was it a couple
similar.
weeks ago?
Yep.
Yeah. The thing about it is, I, as a parent, would not leave my kids for even a minute in my car unattended.
Right.
For various reasons, and the most obvious, of course, is I'm just concerned about their safety and someone, you know, of course, we think of the worst stuff that could happen, someone coming up and breaking a window and taking your child. Kind of the same concept of a vehicle brawl, you know, leaving a laptop on your seat, someone come up there and, you know, take the child out there, and now you're dealing with a huge issue. So I guess, yeah, there's no fine associated with that. If there's more to it, then the protective services, child protective services
Right.
could get involved. But if you're just going in there just to, you know, pay for your gas real quick, you have eyes on the car, you know, there's no law against that.
I think the example we had a couple weeks ago was there was an individual who has to make like they run into the office for a couple
Post
seconds
office or
regularly or
something,
something
I think
like
that
that,
was
and that was which again, as you pointed out, if the conditions are safe for the kid and you can see him, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're going into the grocery store and it's 90 degrees outside, that's a very different situation.
Right. Well, that becomes, again, that was part of the, if there's more to the situation.
Right.
So the windows are rolled up. These are
Right.
very young kids, especially a child in a car seat.
Right.
And you're in a store for 20, 30 minutes, and it's 70, 80, 90 degrees
Yep.
out, and it's getting warm in there. That's a whole different issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we've been getting a few other questions. I think we're going to bank those up for next week. Apparently, this was kind of a cool idea. We'll maybe try doing it again next week. Thanks again, Officer Tinsley, for joining us here.
Yeah, no
and
problem.
a little extended time on Facebook. And we'll actually have this posted on our website, too. And then we'll do more of this again next week. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.